Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good morning, Rush Nation. Here we are. We are getting into the middle of the week now, and we are fully preparing for our week 2 matchups. Week 1 is in the rear view mirror, so it's time to crack on and start thinking about how we either build on from our good start or get over from our bad start. And I guess the thing is, from week 1, it was a very unusual week 1. As a result, there's not too much panic to be had. So I would just be, I want to say, a little cautious on things and just try not to panic. I think that's kind of the best advice I can give you. It was a weird week 1 in a lot of ways, but more importantly, there was just, we had circumstances where we had some tough quarterback matchups. Then we had people sort of probably trying to get a little bit too cute. And then, you've got people like Xavier Worthy, people sort of stealing wins off that one, thinking, okay, where to go with him this week, etc. And I think for me, it's just really important to just have a process, follow that process, and just go from there and just steer the right course. Don't panic if you lost in week 1. Don't get too confident if you won in week 1. So I'm going to go through and really quickly just give you some solid sort of starts and sits to consider in leagues for week 1 and for week 2 even. Forget about week 1. Week 1 is dust. And just a few notes from now, because these are players I think are on the fringe. I'm not going to sit here and start naming like people who clear must starts like Josh Allen. It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. So I'm going to just go through some different names and just get you all prepared on people that are kind of on the fringes and people who are genuine, what I'd call people who, you should be thinking about either starting or sitting in week 1. The first name and the big bone of contention here is J.K. Dobbins. Now, he had a phenomenal week 1. He's at the point where he's rostered in about half of leagues. So he looked great. He's had a lot of injuries, but, he's rushing through 13.5 yards an attempt. Obviously, one of them was a really big 60-yard plus run. Which has to take it in. But given sort of how he got a lot more positive yardage on the majority of his carries versus someone like Gus Edwards who didn't, he for me is someone that I think you've got to be consider starting in your flex if you have him this week, for sure. On the flip side of the coin, I would say Javonte Williams is someone you have to sit. I mean, the Broncos just don't look particularly great. On offense at the moment, it's still starting to sort of click. But he split too much time for me with McLaughlin. McLaughlin got all the targets. Williams just got 1 target in week 1. So I just think for me, if you can afford to sit Javonte Williams, you can, because 8 carries, 23 yards, it's just never going to get it done. And the way that they're likely to play, it's just a real struggle to see him get the volume that he's going to need. So I would be sitting him this week. Another player I'd consider starting is Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas, good start to life. I mean, I put him in the flex category. For me, it definitely looks like they want to put the ball in the air a lot more. Even when they were winning and moving the ball, they were still putting the ball in the air quite considerable. So for me, I'm looking at him and going pretty good about starting Brian Thomas. They're trying to work him into this offense. So I really like the look of starting him. Chuba Hubbard's one I'd be sitting this week for sure. You just can't trust anyone in Carolina at the moment. I'm sitting the whole lot. They're just not a good football team. They're going to struggle to move the football until something happens. You just need to sit them down. Excuse me. All of them, and just sit them down completely because you don't want to get involved with their Some other players you should consider starting this week. Jaden Daniels, he did well in his performance against the Buccaneers, running the football, that's safe floor. There's some concerns about throwing the football, but hey, they're playing the Giants, and that looks like a gimme at this stage of the season already. So I feel pretty good to have Jaden Daniels if you roster him and could afford to start him. I also think Matt Stafford is another good one. I didn't have the best performance from him, but I think he's someone you should feel pretty good about starting this week as well. Najee Harris, I still think there's some question marks about Jaylen Warren, but having said that, you know, Najee Harris, 77% of the team's rushes in week one. I'd expect that to probably carry over as well. And there is a chance they go back to Russell Wilson if he's fit. And if he does, then that means that there should be more work for Harris. You won't get these designed runs by Fields. But even without, I still think he's a player that you can easily consider starting this week. As is Brian Robinson Jr. He got nearly 90 yards against the Buccaneers, and that's not easy to do. He ran pretty well. Even in a negative game script, he's still got a significant amount of targets. He's still touches. He's still got in the end zone. So, and he gets the Giants this week, who were giving up 6.7 yards a carry. So, for me, I'm easily starting Brian Robinson Jr. This is a good matchup for him. And I like the look of Amari Cooper this week. I definitely think this is one that you can feel confident starting. He's going to have a decent game this week against Jacksonville. There's some decent matchups there for him. And then in that negative game script, that could potentially happen as they're on the road. That should feel pretty good for the ball going out to him. Mark Andrews is one I think a lot of people are wrestling with. I actually think people are overreacting. I think that this week could be a Mark Andrews week against the Raiders. With the Chiefs, I think they tried to do a lot of things to kind of throw them off their game and do things differently. So I think with Mark Andrews, that feels like something that I think will be a really good opportunity to bounce back for him in this one. Dallas Goedert's another one as well. Dallas Goedert's another one to fire up this week. I think this is a good matchup and a good opportunity for him to get some additional work this week. Other players to consider sitting, Trevor Lawrence is sort of the big one against the Browns. It's just a terrible matchup. You just don't want to get anywhere near that. We saw how they flattened Dak and limited to 179 passing yards. So I think it's going to be a difficult one. As much as I think that actually I fancy the Jags to win this game, I still think it's going to be a really difficult game for Lawrence. And I think that's why he'll use Brian Thomas Jr. some more. I think Christian Kirk is the one that will kind of suffer out of this trio. So I think it could be a Gabe Davis. Those shorter passes and shorter passing range, I think, will benefit those receivers. But I think for Lawrence, this is going to be tricky. He's going to get sacked a lot. I can see the ball being turned over a lot as well. Zamir White's one I'm folding. I talked about him in my recap show. That it just didn't look great. And then they're playing Baltimore. And so, you're going to be behind. And they're going to be behind even more than they were on Sunday, which is just going to negate what Zamir White does, especially as in the passing game they use Alexander Mattison. So that's one I would definitely be sitting. I'm sitting all the Packers receivers. So that's Reed, Watson, Doubs. I'm sitting all of them this week because Malik Willis looks like he's going to be under center. And that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right at all. I don't like it. I don't think this is something that I want to invest in unless I'm absolutely desperate. We just don't know what's going to happen. Willis has been with this team, I think, about 3 weeks. And I just don't think this is the time to get cute and think, oh, well, they'll carry on as they were. I mean, I can't remember who Malik Willis lost the job to in Tennessee as a backup. But I can't remember it being anyone good. And that's something I'd be worried about. So I think you'll find that the Packers should sign someone like Tannehill. It makes too much sense. If that happens, I still think I'm fading them all this week against the Colts. And someone might pop up and give you a a decent score. But I just think I look at that process and I just want out of it, really, is where I'm at. I'm also benching Xavier Worthy, right? So much hype on what he did with his 2 touchdowns. One of them was just something should never have happened, as I talked about already. But he only saw a 63% snap share and he only saw 3 targets and 1 carry. None of it's there. None of the usage is there. I just don't think it's going to be there again for Xavier Worthy. And unless he converts 2 touchdowns off 4 touches, it's not going to pay off for you. So don't get cute and feel like you need to start Xavier Worthy based on week 1. Absolutely not. One player who was on my sort of watch list who I think could do quite well is someone I'm actually benching this week, and that is actually Pat Freiermuth. I don't think this is a great week for him against the Broncos. The Broncos really know how to defend against tight ends. And last season, so this is the difference between last season and this season. Last season, they gave up loads of points to tight ends, but this season they look like a much better drilled unit. And they look like they're not going to give you much over the middle. And you can probably beat them in the corners and you can beat them out in the flats, but I think that they contain and wrap up Freiermuth a little bit, especially if they have Justin Fields under center. Now, if Russell Wilson's under center, I might be more inclined to play Freiermuth. But if it is going to be Fields, I'm probably going to stay away from him just this once and think about moving on to a different tight end option this week. Brock Bowers is another one that I would be considering sitting this week as well. I just think as much as he was great with the target share last week, I think this could be a really difficult struggle for them. So I would just sort of stay there. If you're looking for sort of potential sleepers and players who you should potentially start if there's injuries, Justin Fields is obviously the one that screams out. Baker Mayfield's another one, even though it's against the Lions and he didn't have 2 great performances against the Lions. I think this offense is much better. Both of those would be good sleepers for me. I think you might see quite a bit of Bucky Irving this week, so I think he's a decent sort of low-end flex play if you're struggling to find players to start. DeMarcus Robinson becomes a sort of must-add play now with Puka Nacua on the waiver wire. He's someone that I think you've got to play in all formats if you've got the space to. So there's a few sort of sleepers from me that you can certainly consider this week. The Isaiah Likely debate is going to be interesting. I think you could probably potentially start him and see if he gets a similar role, but I wouldn't necessarily bank on it. I think that's one I'd probably stay away from this week, but I could see the logic in doing that. If you wanted to take a gamble, he's in that sort of gamble flex range that I could see some value in going for, but yeah, it's one that you've got to be a little bit careful of. But I think that's going to do it for some starts and sits. These are all sort of those marginal calls. If you have some more that you'd like to talk about, please do put them in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe, but please do hit the comments below. And then I can definitely pick some up. If you want access to me, you can join our Patreon. That's patreon.com/5yardrush. And you can indeed get access to me in a WhatsApp chat to help you with any lineup suggestions and struggles. I'm always happy to do that privately as well. And we'll do the matchup show tomorrow. That will cover off all my rankings and where I am on all these players. So you'll get a good feel for kind of where I'm at. And that will help with some more start-sit decisions. So should give you a lot more clarity. Don't forget the FFCC sign-ups are officially open. So do join us for that. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's show and made the most of that and enjoyed all the fun that we're going to have with the FFCC this year. It's definitely going to be a great event and help us raise even more money for charity. So please do get in there. Anyone who signs up and donates will be guaranteed a spot in the 2025 event. That's going to do it. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll be back tomorrow for some matchups. But until then, as always, Rush Nation, don't forget, keep rushing.